All right, so you should have listened to the introduction to polio. You should have listened to chapter one, the diagnosis part one. And now we are going to move on to chapter one, the diagnosis part two. So, in the last chunk, if you've already listened, you know that our narrator was feeling kind of sick. She was feeling kind of weird, and she didn't really know what was up, but she had to miss that homecoming parade she was so excited about. So, let's find out what's going on with her. Dr. Wright came, took my temperature, listened to my breathing, and talked to my mother. Mother sponged my forehead with the cold cloth. I dozed, woke, and slept again. At midnight, I began to vomit. Mother and Dad helped me to the bathroom. We all assumed I had the flu. Dr. Wright returned before breakfast the next morning and took my temperature again. Still 102, he said. He helped me sit up with my feet dangling over the side of the bed. He tapped my knees with his rubber mallet. This was supposed to make my legs jerk. They didn't. They hung limp and unresponsive. I was too woozy from the pain and fever to care. He ran his fingernail across the bottom of my foot from the heel to toes. It felt awful, but I couldn't pull my foot away. He did the same thing on the other foot with the same effect. I wish he would leave me alone so I could sleep. I need to do a spinal tap on her, he told my parents. Can you take her to the hospital right away? When Dr. Wright got the results, he asked my parents to go to another room. While I dozed again, he told me the diagnosis, and they returned alone to tell me. Mother held my hand. You have polio, Dad said, as he stroked my hair back from my forehead. You will need to go to a special hospital for polio patients in Minneapolis. Polio? Panic shot through me and I began to cry. How could I have polio? I didn't know anyone who had the disease. Where did the virus come from? How did it get in my body? I didn't want to have polio. I didn't want to leave my family and go to a hospital 100 miles away. As we drove home to pack, I sat slumped in the back seat. How long will I have to stay in the hospital? I asked Mom. Until you're well, Mother said. When we got home, I was not allowed to leave the car, not even to say goodbye to Grandpa, who lived with us, or to BJ, my dog. We cannot take a chance of spreading the deadly virus. Our orders were strict. I must contaminate no one. Karen called, Mother said when she returned with the suitcase. The seventh grade float won second prize. I was too sick and frightened to care. Grandpa waved at me through the window. Tears glistened on his cheeks. I had never seen my grandfather cry. Later that morning, I walked into the isolation ward of the Sheltering Arms Hospital in Minneapolis and went to bed in a private room. No one was allowed in except the doctors and nurses, and they wore masks. My mother stood outside on the grass, waving bravely and blowing kisses through the window. Exhausted, feverish, and scared, I fell asleep. When I woke up, I was paralyzed.